Welcome back, Lane. I've been working on teaching your sister and some friends some aspects of iPhone programming, and those videos will be available for you online. And what we're going to do is we're going to continue our work on the UI table view and build more complex uh, aspects of that. So right now it's just listing the list of colleges. Oh, and let me, I'll share the screen in a second. Just listing the list of colleges, these top ranking colleges. And what I'd like to do is be able to drag in another plist data source file and display that as, in a way, a separate table. And then perhaps also display some of that secondary data, the tuition cost, and then also the city where the college is located, that we can see in the key value pair relationships. So let's do that. I think we lost Lane on our connection. See if we can bring her back. Hey, we got disconnected. Um, yeah. Okay. All right. So now, okay, we're back. We're going to continue. Let me share my screen. So you can tell me when the screen loads. So currently, we have this list based on that first plist file. And that first plist file is the top colleges, along with the cities, top ranking colleges. And I've got another data source on my desktop, the tuition expenses for each of these top colleges. So we'll just drag on to the supporting files, copy into the destination, that new data source. All right, let's take a look at that. All right, well, it's the same colleges, but it's a different key value pair. It's a different value. The value is now tuition expense, whereas before it was the city that the college was based in. So let's load up this new plist into our project. First thing we need to do is we need to create a space to store that data in memory. So we can create a property, non-atomic, strong, NS dictionary, colleges, tuition. Then another for the just an array of those keys. So non-atomic, strong, NS array, colleges, tuition, keys. Now we have a place to store that new data. And we don't need to synthesize. Let's just dive straight into loading up that data. So we'll do that within viewDidLoad. Use a jump bar to go down to viewDidLoad. And we'll be using a similar pattern to what we've already done. Make some space. We need to first pull out the file name, or the file path of that file. We'll use the NS bundle main bundle method. Path for resource. And it's going to be kind of a long file name, actually. Let's just copy and paste that in. And we select the string area. Now that's going to be a plist. Close it off. And so we have our file path at this point. And let's go ahead and allocate memory for the NS dictionary and initialize it with the new data. And we'll be storing that within our new property, college's tuition, which is a NS dictionary. So we allocate space, NS dictionary, alloc init with contents of file. My path, or my file path, looks good. And then now we load up the keys. Self, colleges, tuition, keys. Self, colleges, tuition, all keys method. That should do it. I won't bother to check because I think it's going to be right. But if we find a bug later, we can do an nslog to double check that the data is getting correctly read in. So we've now got both plist files in our memory. And when we display this data, we want to display it on this table view. But instead of using this plain style, we're going to customize by going to the attributes inspector, table view style, grouped. There. Now we have a new style, and then you'll see the first plist file will appear on the first section. The second plist file will appear on that second section. Just like that. And it also supports, you notice, like the headers. We'll be actually adding that, in fact. So how do we proceed with this? Let's take a look at how things are being arranged in the current code. So now we've loaded up the data, and then we have delegate methods and data source methods for loading up, or for determining the count of the rows and then the contents of those cells. Now let's take a look at the documentation for the data source. Let's see if there's anything in there that would allow us to add a new section for that second piece of data. Now we're within the UI TableView data source protocol reference, okay? And look at this. This is what we want. Number of sections in table. Ask the data source to return the number of sections in the table. This is what we want. We're just going to copy this header line, and we're going to be implementing this. So this is an optional method. We'll go ahead and put it in there. And how many sections? Well, that's based on the number of plist files in our case. So it's going to be 2. There's 2 plist files. Return 2. All right, that looks good. Now, let's see what happens when we run that. Okay. So we have Cornell, Duke, just like that. Okay. And now here we have that same data appearing for the second section. And it looks like a complete repeat, in fact. So basically, currently our table view is structured such that we're saying, well, there's 2 sections. And then for each of those sections, we're saying, well, it's going to be the count of the number of colleges. So let's say it's 20, 25 or something. And for each of those rows in each of those sections, it calls this. What's the cell for each of those rows in the section? So now there's another thing we want to do. We want to so first of all, the data isn't being kind of loaded properly in the second section, even though it's sort of the same key for the key value pairs. It's actually pulling out the, the title from just this college's keys. So that's actually not what we want, but we'll get to that in a minute. Let's first go ahead and put a header title. Now the way we do that is, well, we could look in the class reference, and maybe we will do that, but we could also look at that .h file, which is kind of convenient sometimes. Section index titles. Title for section, or title for header in section. So that's what we want. So we want to grab this guy as the data source for the title of the header, the specified section of the table. So we'll grab that, and we want to implement that method. And remember, we have two sections, and so we need to ask it, well, what's their current section, and then return the appropriate title. And you see this method is returning a string. So we'll first do a check, and we'll say if the section equals 0, then return top ranking universities. But then if the section is 1, in other words, that second section, so we'll do an else, return tuition at top ranking universities. Let's see how that turns out. We'll run it in the simulator. Aha, there. We have the header title, correct, right there. And then this is good too, tuition at top ranking universities. So that's what we want for our end sort of product. But in fact, the data we're seeing in the table views sections are not quite there yet, but we'll be getting to that in a minute. So let's now modify the number of rows in the section, because actually the number of rows in each section is going to vary based on the data source. So we need to do a similar pattern of checking which section we're in. So we'll just comment out our previous command, and we'll say if section equals 0, and we're returning an integer here, we'll return self colleges count. It's for the first section. Else, now we're in the second section, we're going to return self colleges tuition count. All right, that should do it. I won't bother to check. I think it should be fine. Now let's also fix up the cell title. So we need to have a similar process of checking which section we're in. And you can see here, this is where it's pulling out the college name. So in fact, in this particular example, the college, we're dealing with the same colleges. So this will almost appear to be identical what we output, but it's in the next phase when we pull out the tuition expense, display that we'll actually be seeing the difference. All right, so now we'll do a similar check. So we'll say if index path row Actually, I'm going to use a different syntax. I'm just going to use the dot. Or no, that's fine. We'll pull out the row equals 0. So we're in the first section. Then we're doing this operation. All right. Now else, this is when we're in the second section. Else we're gonna do a similar process. We'll just pull that declaration of the college name out. And we'll say college name self college keys, or college's tuition keys. That's our array. Object at index. Index path. Row. Okay, now that should pull out the appropriate college name. All right, and this is going to actually look the same. We won't notice a difference quite yet, but we'll run it and make sure everything's looking good. Yeah, top ranking universities. Yeah, that's looking good. But this time, in fact, the data on the second section is coming from the new data source, that second data source. And we'll be able to see that in just a moment. So this is, we'll just go ahead and label this. This is where we do the college name. And now let's pull out the detail item and then set that to the cell. So we need to, again, have the structure. I'll just go ahead and copy this. It's a similar structure, but it will be different information. So we'll just call it detail item. So we're checking first if we're in that first section, and then we'll be assigning the detail item. And this is where we have our difference. So it's not going to be pulling out the actually, in fact, this is the key. So we'll go ahead and keep this college name because that's going to be the key. And then with the key, we're going to pull out the detail item from the dictionary. So it's what is that dictionary called? So it's called colleges. Oh, it needs to be self.colleges. And then it's object for keys. Oh, actually, I think we want object for key. Yeah. So it's object for key, and then the key is the college name. So that's how the dictionary works. Close that. And we'll just move forward and do that second section. So we can actually keep this because that's going to give us our key. And we have a similar pattern to pull out the detail item. Self colleges, but then it's going to be a different NS dictionary. An object for key college name. So we're reusing that college name string over and over. Okay, now let's set this new information, the detail item, into the cell. So we'll say cell detail text label See if that's the right one. I'm not entirely sure. And then text equals detail item. Okay, we'll run that. And what change do we see? Absolutely nothing. It's the same. Now, how do we make it actually appear? Well, we need to actually choose a different UI TableView cell style. And where do we do that? It's when we're allocating memory in the first place. So you see here up at the top of the cell for row index path, we allocate space in this section. And it's when we create a new TableView cell that we can specify its style. So UI TableView cell style subtitle. That's what's going to allow us to see that detail item. We'll run that. And there you go. Huh. It's interesting though, because it's sort of mixing things around. Seems like kind of a bug. Wonder why that is. I wasn't expecting that. So we have college name. Let's see if we can figure this out. It's strange because it's showing the city on this first row, and then it's let's look at. Okay, we're gonna do some debugging now. So we'll go to where we're loading in the data and make sure. So that's the view did load, and we'll make sure that the data is being loaded correctly. So we're just gonna print out everything. So we'll say nslog, and first we'll say colleges at, this is self colleges. All right, that's fine. Now let's check the other dictionary, colleges tuition, and then see how that looks. All right. So here we have the printing out of two separate dictionaries. That looks just fine. So there's no issue there. And then let's do it for the keys. So this should be pulling out the keys. Okay, here we have our keys. Okay, that's just fine. So we have our data loaded in properly. So the bug must be so the count seems to be fine. These guys are fine. There's two sections, that's fine. Loading of the data is fine. So the bug must be somewhere in here in the way that the cell assignments are being made. Um, so it's this detail item that's having an issue. So we're checking which section we're in by asking index path row equals 0. And then we're attempting to pull out the um, let's do some NS logs at this point. First section. And now NS log college name. College name. And we'll do that with detail. So let's start with that. We'll run that. Huh. It seems to be only calling that once. Oh, that's why. Because we have a bug there. It's we should have said section. Instead we said row. Huh. Okay, run that. Sorry guys. There, we got it. So now we have the cities appearing. And then in the second section, we have tuition. Okay. I think we're better now. But that was in a way helpful because you can see how debugging takes place, even though that was a little silly bug. I should have had this as section and not row. But you can see the way that you can, in a way, narrow down, like, okay, was there a problem in the data source in the beginning? No, that's fine. We printed that to the console, it looks great. Is there a problem in other parts of the code? Like, no, this setting of the labels for the cell, that takes place in this method. Must be in there. And then finally, we figured out that was it. So this was firing just for that very first row, when row was 0, and then it was skipping this and always doing this code execution. All right, so I think that covers this video, and we'll be moving on to an even more sophisticated table view in the next video.